Hey there, history buffs and enthusiasts. Thanks for tuning in to The Well-Oiled Mind. Before we start, if you enjoy what you hear today, please hit the like and subscribe button so we can create even more of the content that interests you. Okay, let's go ahead and get right to it. Napoleon Bonaparte, architect of an empire, forefather of modern Europe. Today we embark on a journey back through time to briefly unravel the life and legacy of one of history's most fascinating figures, Napoleon Bonaparte. Admittedly, we'll just be hitting the wave tops today, but if you love history and if you're searching for a concise overview for one of Europe's most influential figures, this video is going to be perfect for you. Having said that, even if you're not an expert on history, you've almost certainly heard of Napoleon. He's one of those special historical figures so impactful to our globe that they are instantly recognized by a single name like Caesar, Gandhi, or Elizabeth. When someone utters the name Napoleon, there is no doubt whatsoever of whom they are referring to. Born in Corsica in 1769, this diminutive yet extraordinary man would rise to become the Emperor of the French and leave a permanent mark on the pages of history and our very own lives today. Early life and military ascendancy. Napoleon's story begins on the Mediterranean island of Corsica. Raised in a modest but large family, young Napoleon enjoyed formalized school learning and demonstrated an early affinity for military affairs. Nevertheless, he also showed a proclivity toward being an autodidact for those subjects that most interested him. In time, he would become well known for his voracious appetite for books and his unrivaled memory, specifically the ability to recall minute detail. These talents were evident to anyone who was around the young Corsican for even a brief period of time. Eventually, he won admission to the military school in Brienne. This military training and schooling site, situated in the Champagne region of France, was one of the 12 preparatory schools for the National Military Academy in Paris. While his attendance at the National Military Academy, or École Militaire, was important, the time at Brienne was absolutely formative. It was here that Napoleon employed his genius in mathematics to help establish himself as a superlative artilleryman. Here, too, he began to formulate opinions about the empirical nature of war as well as more lofty thoughts. Reflecting back, he said of his time at Brienne, quote, "As regards my thinking, it is not Corsica, but Brienne that is my native land, because it was there that I formulated my first opinions of mankind." End quote. In the tumultuous years of the French Revolution, Napoleon's rise somewhat mirrored the chaos and opportunities of that era. Through military prowess as well as boldness and political acumen, he ascended the ranks rapidly, eventually becoming a national hero who quelled internal unrest and staved off foreign invasions. Specifically, in the 1790s, Napoleon fought a series of wars against European coalitions. These countries were predominantly monarchies whose royalty and social elites felt threatened by the French Revolution and its implications for their own dynastic-style rule and European stability writ large. At a later date, we'll do full videos on these wars, known as the War of the First Coalition, 1792 to 1797, and the War of the Second Coalition, 1798 to 1802. These conflicts are fascinating in their own right, and they're where Bonaparte made his reputation as a military leader of the First Order. To resume, by around the beginning of the 19th century, after fighting dozens of battles, almost all of them victories, Napoleon had accumulated an unrivaled standing domestically and was feared and respected internationally. Militarily speaking, he had no rival in the French orbit whatsoever. Looking farther afield, it seemed that no one anywhere in Europe could match him either. With this exceptional personal gravitas, he seized power in 1799 in a coup, ushering in a new era and establishing himself as first consul. The rise of the emperor. As first consul, Napoleon was not content with mere political power. In 1804, he took the bold, but not out of character move, of crowning himself emperor. Ironically, this brazen act marked a not-so-veiled revival of a monarchy in France, the very thing the 1789 French Revolution had so vehemently and violently opposed. Now having ultimate control, and with an insatiable appetite for conquest, Napoleon embarked on a fresh series of military campaigns. These typically vast and ambitious military expeditions were also rife with other non-military consequences. His expeditions would reshape the map and nature of Europe through a 10-year inferno of battle, death, intrigue, and forced political and social upheavals. Decisive victories such as those of Austerlitz and Jena Auerstadt reminded his adversaries and the globe that he was a truly remarkable commander, a genius even. His Grande Armée marched through Europe, achieved unprecedented success, and established the French army as a dominant force, and the levée en masse as a paradigm shift vis-a-vis mobilizing and sustaining a modern state in times of war. Napoleon's reforms. Napoleon, controversial and complex figure as he remains, was not merely a conqueror. He was also a visionary reformer. His Napoleonic Code, a comprehensive legal system, was created to streamline and standardize laws across his vast empire. Napoleon was not alone in perceiving the need for such revisions. Voltaire once said that while traveling across France, one had to adapt to local laws as frequently as they had to change horses. Napoleon's code, known in his time as the Civil Code, provided a previously lacking uniformity. It vastly expanded rights to the entirety of the male citizenry and even required judges to interpret the law and render judgments rather than balking and citing an inadequacy of the legal code. Amazingly, aspects of this code can still be found today. Additionally, Bonaparte initiated educational, infrastructure, and economic reforms, leaving an enduring impact on the territories he controlled. Despite his military triumphs and transformative reforms, Napoleon's ambitions faced resistance. The infamous invasion and disastrous retreat from Russia in 1812 led to political and social shockwaves in France that severely weakened his grip on power and tainted his aura of invincibility. The tide of domestic public sentiment had turned against him. This culminated in his abdication in April of 1814. Exile and the 100 Days. Following this first abdication, there would soon be a second, Napoleon was banished to the semi-remote territory of Elba, an island off the west coast of the Tuscany region of Italy. This humiliation seemed to be a wholly ignominious end to his story. However, the allure of power proved too strong, and his personal magnetism showed itself irresistible once more. He formulated a plan to escape captivity and seize power. The newly reconstituted French monarchy, led by recently restored and stoic if rotund Louis XVIII, proved too weak to oppose Napoleon. On 20 March 1815, Bonaparte made good his escape, and the Quicksilver period, known as the 100 Days, had begun. This impulse was brief and intense, and in the end, a doomed resurgence of his once glorious empire. The Battle of Waterloo would be his final stand. Everything for Napoleon and his unsteady empire rested on this one titanic battle. In the end, however, the French could not resist the numerically superior and well-led forces of the Seventh and Final Coalition. Defeated by the Allied armies, Napoleon abdicated once more, this time for good. His new and final home was to be the remote island of St. Helena. The Allies learned their lesson this time and would brook no second return of the wily former emperor. St. Helena is a tiny tropical island over 1,900 kilometers off the west coast of Africa in the great South Atlantic wastes. It was here that Napoleon would die about 5 years later, far from France, farther still from glory. Quite a fall for the man who for over 1/4 of a century had most of Europe quaking. Legacy and reflection. Napoleon's legacy is a complex tapestry woven with both triumphs and tragedies, philanthropy and good works, as well as state-sponsored horror. In one hand, he carried the torch of freedom, in the other a sword. He never hesitated to use either as it suited his needs. For Napoleon, it seemed the ends always justified the means. His military brilliance and reformist zeal transformed Europe, leaving a lasting impact on governance, law, warfare, and even our understanding and perceptions of morality. Clearly, the cost of his ambition was immense. Millions of lives were lost, and untold quantities of property were destroyed or stolen in the wake of his warfighting. As we reflect on the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, we're confronted with a man whose global endowment, as it were, continues to shape our understanding of power and politics, of military affairs and national interests, and the relationship between leaders and the led. In his rise and fall, we can see what happens when ambition is improperly tempered by well-thought-out considerations, or perhaps care, of consequences. Whether revered or reviled, there is no denying the impact Napoleon has had on the course of history. Conclusion. And so, we conclude our whirlwind overview of the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose name will continue to echo through the ages. As we reflect on his triumphs, defeats, and his enduring legacy, let us continue to thoroughly ponder the complexities of leadership, ambition, and the indomitable spirit that drives individuals to shape the destiny of nations. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Napoleon's life, a tale that will continue to captivate and intrigue generations to come. Until we embark on our next historical sojourn, farewell and remember, knowledge is its own reward.